Whenever someone thinks of Ben 10, what is the most iconic thing about the series? The aliens, of course. And one of the coolest things about the aliens, besides something like their power sets or their feats, is their character design. There has been a ton of fan interpretations of the aliens that have appeared in the series. And today, I thought it'd be fun to rank the 5YL designs of Ben Prime's aliens. For those of you who don't know, 5YL stands for 5 years later and is a fan comic that crosses over Ben 10 and Danny Phantom, where Ben is 5 years older than he was in Omniverse. The comic was created by Kuro the artist of the Ink Tank and has been going on for many years now. At the time of this recording, there has been a motion comic of 5YL that has been posted on the Ink Tank's channel, so if you're curious, I recommend checking it out. It's pretty cool stuff. I'm not here to necessarily talk about my thoughts on the comic, but more so the character designs of Ben Prime's aliens, and ranking them based off how much I like them. As with any tier list, this is of course subjective. Any design I may like, you may dislike, and vice versa. Regardless of what I think of these designs, I think that the art is fantastic stuff. Also, I want to mention that not every single design was necessarily designed by him. There's a 5YL wiki, so I'm actually learning on who designed which alien, and I'm going to give proper credit when I see it. I don't think there's anything else I need to really explain in terms of what I'm going to be doing for this tier list, so let's get to it, shall we? First off, we have Heat Blast, designed by Kuro the artist. I think Heat Blast is the perfect alien to start with, not only because it's the first alien that Ben ever transformed into, but because this design is pretty middle ground for me. I like the detail of his rocks, I like the shoulders being like the Ben 10,000 Heat Blast, and I like that his head shape's a lot bigger. The only downside for this design for me is honestly the pants. I don't think he needs it and it just doesn't look that good to me, but I do like Heat Blast and 5YL overall. This one gets a B tier. It's pretty good, but not super amazing. Next up, we have Wild Mutt, also designed by Kuro the artist. I'm not sure how I feel with this design because I've never been a fan of the tail that Ben 10,000's Wild Mutt has. I don't know, I just don't really fuck with it, and the armor he has is okay. I think the shoulders and the wrists look pretty good, the chest and back is alright. I'm not really a big fan of the headgear, and I do not like that Omnitrix badge placement at all. This design has things I like about it and things I dislike, so I think it evens out into a C tier. Next we have Diamond Head, designed by Insane Mane. I'm not even going to attempt to try to pronounce that last name correctly, and I'm one to talk. With that said, I actually really like this design a lot. It's kind of a mixture of the Omniverse and the Ben 10,000 design of Diamond Head, but I only have one downside with it, and that's the crystal beard. I know it's probably a reference to how Tetrax has one in Omniverse, but I just don't think it looks that good. This design is really solid, pardon the pun, so even with the beard in mind, I think this gets an A tier because this is a really good design. I don't think Diamond Head has ever had a bad design, and even in fandom stuff, that still applies. Next we have Accelerate, also designed by Kuro the artist. This one, like Diamond Head, is a mixture of the Omniverse and Ben 10,000 designs, and I think it looks really good. I love that his visor has an Omnitrix motif on it, and I love the markings on his arms and legs. The only thing I guess if I could nitpick a bit is that I don't like his claws being blue, but that's not that big of a deal. This is an S tier, like, this design translates really well, I love it. As for Gray Matter, designed by Kuro the artist, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was originally thinking maybe a C, because I was like, this design is not really that good, but it's not awful, but I don't know, man, the more I look at it, the more I don't like it. I don't know, something about it, maybe it's the fucking shorts, maybe it's like the weird markings on his shoulder I don't really think is needed, I don't know, like, I just don't like this design, I'm gonna be honest. I do like the little, like, straps on his shoulder. That's kind of neat, but, like, yeah, this is a D tier. I don't like 5YL Gray Matter at all, I'm gonna be honest. Four Arms is the first of a few aliens to have two designers, in this case, Kuro the artist and Insane Mane. This one kind of mixes Omniverse and UAF forearms in a way I actually really like. I've never been a fan of forearms with hair, especially the Omniverse version, but this one actually doesn't look too bad. I like the gold armor, I like the white and green to complement his outfit, and I think his face looks pretty good. Honestly, this one gets a B tier. Not my favorite forearms ever, but I do like it more in Omniverse, so that counts for something. I honestly didn't expect Stinkfly of all aliens to be one of my favorite designs in 5YL, which by the way, was designed by Insane Mane, but I didn't really remember it then, and now that I'm looking at it, this gets an S tier. I love the sharp edges on his legs and tails, I love the face details, I love the suit details, the wing shapes, it all looks fantastic. My only downside is the pupils. I've always been an advocate for pupil-less Stinkfly, I think he just looks more alien that way, but this design is still really fucking great, S tier easily. As for Ripjaws, designed by Kuro the artist and Insane Mane, I like it a lot. I love the suit details, particularly on the upper body, and I think it's like a nice mixture of classic and Omniverse Ripjaws. I like the lining details on his face and teeth, I like the angler, I like how his fins look, I love the details like underneath his tail, that looks really good. I'm not too big on the breathing brace, like I get why he has it, obviously, but it's like, I don't know, I just don't think it looks good for his design, but that's just me personally. I think Ripjaws is once again an S tier. Upgrade, designed by Kuro the artist, is a bit of an oddball for me, because I didn't remember liking it too much when I first saw it, but looking back, I actually think this one's pretty solid. I like his techno patterns and the extra glow he has. It kind of reminds me of the Generator Rex upgrade. I like the shades of green and purple he has, in fact, the purple shade probably being a nod to the reboot, and I think that his eye, while different looking, is pretty neat. I don't think it's as good as the official upgrades, particularly UAF upgrade, which I know is a very unpopular opinion, but I don't care. UAF upgrade is best upgrade. But as far as this design goes, I think it gets an A tier. This is still really good. And to cap off the original 10, we have Ghost Freak, designed by Kuro the artist, and this design is fucking sick. I love the line details, I love how his tail's exposed, the little ribcage pattern, the eye, and just his facial expression and his artwork in general. Like, it looks really good. I didn't even mention like the cool like exposed bone fingers. That's awesome. Like, this is great. I think this one gets an S tier. Cannon Bolt, designed by Kuro the artist, is one I feel like I was a little too harsh at when I first saw it, but now looking back, I do like it a little more than I used to. I love that he has details from his Ben 10,000 counterpart, especially giving it a green motif instead of a black, so it actually clashes a little better instead of just blending in. And I do like the little patterns on his knees. There's only one downside to this design, and you know where I'm getting at, the Omnitrix badge placement. Even if he can lock the Omnitrix badge and all that, it's just an ugly placement. I don't like it. I'm gonna be honest, this could have been a B tier, but that placement of the badge really ruins it for me. It's like Omniverse upgraded in that matter. So yeah, C tier for this one. And now we have our first alien designed by O.R. Ashe, Wildvine. And he's a really good design to start with. There's only one thing I don't like about it, so I guess I'll start with that, which is the hair and the beard. I'm not a big fan of when the aliens have that, if I'm being honest. Maybe I'm a bit of a Debbie Downer for that, but I just don't like it. As far as Wildvine's design goes without that in mind, still really good. They bring back his eye shoulders, his flytrap looks sick and monstrously. I love the extra vines all over his body. Kind of reminds me of like the Wildvine fusions you'd see in like the DNA lab and stuff. Like, this is such a good design, and I love the suit details too. It's really unique looking. This one gets an A tier. The hair and the beard definitely put it down a bit for me, but not by too much. Next up is Spitter, designed by O.R. Ashe. This one's really good. It's like, it gives Omniverse vibes, but still with the more monstery look that he had in Classic. The only downside is I don't really like how his like, I don't even know what you would call like little quills or spine things, whatever you call it. I don't like how they're curled and flat. I like it more when it's like protruding a bit, but that's not too bad of a change. And I think that his shade of green being darker was better than the more pale one he has here. Okay, I'm actually checking his concept art now, and I've realized I should be calling them whiskers, so that's my bad. Yeah, whiskers, my bad. But I actually really like how he looks in the concept art even more. It's not as detailed, obviously, being concept art, but this is a really good design. Honestly, I'm kind of want to have the concept art be a little bit of a reason for my ranking here, even though it's not really necessarily fair. But I mean, it's Spitter. Who the fuck is passionate about Spitter? So this one's gonna get a B tier. This one's pretty good. Next is Buzzshock, designed by Kuro the artist and O.R. Ashe. This is another one, like Cannibal, I was a little too harsh at when I first saw it, but now that I'm looking at it, I do like it a little more. I think the suit looks pretty good, and the little like energy meter on his stomach is actually pretty cool. I don't know how I feel about the whole goggles thing, but the little lightning bolt like shading things he has is pretty neat, and I do like the extra bolts he has. I think this one kind of goes back and forth with me, so I'm going to give this one a C tier. As for Arctiquana, designed by Kuro the artist, this is a really fucking great design. I love that he actually has a black and green suit, which for some reason Omniverse didn't do. That always stuck out to me even when I first saw the show. And I do like how this design looks more fish-like, considering that Arctiquana looks way more like a fish than he does an iguana to me. I never got why he was just called Arctiquana. He looked like a shark, especially in Classic. I love the little whisker details, I love the little bumps on his body, the scales. Like, this is a really great design. This one gets an S tier. Like, this design is so amazing. Probably one of my favorites in all of 5OL. Blitzwolfer, designed by Kuro the artist and O.R. Ashe, is a bit of an oddball. Him, along with a handful of aliens, don't really get too many changes going from the canon to 5OL designs, so I don't really know how to evaluate this one. I do like each of the aliens that are a part of this little category, so I'm going to probably give them all B tier because there's not too much different about them, and Blitzwolfer is definitely a case of that. He is a bit paler, his suit design's different, and he has a bit more emphasis on blue for his ears, which is nice, but again, not that different. Now we have Snarrow, designed by Kuro the artist and O.R. Ashe, and this gets an S tier. All Snarrows are perfect. That's like the #1 rule for me. But in all seriousness, for an actual detailed reason why, I love the like stripes he has and clothing. I like the little like almost like bone structure built of his bandages, at least with his like ribcage and stuff. I like the badge placement being the belt with actual gold instead of the Omniverse belt that they usually reuse over and over again. I like his headpiece. I like his like, I like everything, honestly. That's all I gotta really say about it. Like, Snarrow's just always perfect to me, always. As for Frankenstrike, designed by O.R. Ash, I think this design is really solid. My only downside is I'm not a big fan of that weird, like, pink vein in the middle of his body, and I don't really like the hair as much as I wish I could. I like it more than Omniverse's, but, you know, it's only because I think longer hair works better for Frankenstrike. As far as details I like about it, there's a lot to go over. I like the pistons, I like the towers on his back, I like the detailing of all of his armor, I like the glowing lines on his legs, I like his boot designs, I like almost everything about it except the vein in the hair. This one gets an A tier. I think it's really good, it's just held back by a few things. Okay, so Upchuck is a bit of an odd case too, because he has two different versions, of course, the Merc Upchuck and the Perk Upchuck. For me personally, in the show's canon, I do prefer the Merc Upchucks. I've always been a big fan of UAF's Upchuck personally. I don't know why, I just really fuck with it. As far as 5YL goes, I'm kind of on the opposite spectrum for this one, because I actually like the Perk design more. I love he has an actual suit, unlike what Omniverse did. I don't know, I just don't fuck with Omniverse Upchuck. And I love the little, like, markings on his face, on his stomach, that looks really good. I like the little, like, details of white patterns. I like how his tongues look, they look really nice. Like, everything about this design is really good. Honestly, S tier, like, this is fantastic. As for Merc Upchuck, however, I do give credit that, you know, Kuro wanted to make it look a lot more different compared to the Perk Upchuck to make him feel more like different subspecies, but I don't know, man. He looks like an old man who ate like a whole bunch of lemons and is like really going through it, or like, I don't know, like he has a black hole in his stomach and he's just like getting sucked in inwards, which, you know what, actually, hold on, the Gormans do have like black hole stuff. Never mind. Okay, point is, I'm not as big of a fan as this design. This one's gonna go into A, because I still like it a lot. It's just really the face that kinda brings it down to A instead of S. I don't know, maybe it's the wrinkles, I don't know, I just don't like it that much. Just looking at it just feels off. Next we have Ditto, designed by Kuro the artist, and I think this design is pretty good. Like other designs, I do like how this one feels like a mixture of multiple designs from the canon, and I do like how there's more colors to separate a little better, instead of using the overuse of black and green that 16-year-old Ben does. I like the line details and the pattern it has, and this one does go into its cuteness, kind of like what Omniverse does, though not as much, so I think this one gets an A tier. As for Eye Guy, designed by O.R. Ash, there's a lot to really like about this design. I love the webbed hands and feet, that's a neat detail, and I do like how his chest eye can actually be somewhat seen, but it's still hidden, because the center eye is so important for his character design, so seeing it not there by default, especially in Omniverse, is a bit of a downgrade. My only downside is the little stubbles of hair. I don't like that at all. It kind of reminds me of Real Monsters, which might have been the intention, but I'm not sure. I also don't think his pants look as good as the Omniverse or classic pants, but that's just a nitpick. I think this one gets a solid A tier. It's very close to reaching S, but it's just not there. And to cap off the classic series aliens, of course we can't talk about the classic series without talking about one of the more controversial designs in 5YL, Waybig. Now, Waybig's design when I first saw it, I'm not gonna lie, I was very confused at. I was like, what the hell is this? But let me defend the design a little bit and say I like the idea that they were going for. So this Waybig was designed by Kuro the artist, and the intention, I believe, was to make him look more aged and rusted and like a mountain, really, and that's not a bad idea at all. But I don't know, something about it just feels kind of, I wouldn't say gross, just not that good looking. I do like how his face looks and how his eyes emote. That generally is really good, and I do kind of like how his neck looks as well. The layers are actually pretty cool. But it just doesn't compare to the armor that he has in the canon. I don't know, I just don't fuck with it that much. I'm gonna be honest, this is a D tier. I don't completely hate it, but I don't really like it that much either. Starting off with the Alien Force roster, we have Swampfire, designed by Kuro the artist. Now before I critique this design, I want to say that I do really like it, and I don't like a lot of the elements that come from the Blossomed form, but Kuro himself did mention he only kept those elements to respect the canon. He's better than me, I would've fucking retconned this shit like this. Now with that aside, I do like a lot of things about the design. For example, the line details on his body that kind of resemble like the details you would see on leaves. I like his pedal designs, I like how the hands look, and I also like that they keep the leg pedals from the Omniverse design, at least the pre-Blossom form. Overall, I think this one gets an A tier. The elements from the Blossom design do kind of distract a bit, but I still think it's really neat. As for Echo Echo, designed by Kuro the artist, I don't know. I kind of like some elements and I don't like some others. I like the details on his feet and his wrist. I like how the head is shaped. I'm not a big fan of the wires being connected to his chest though. That looks off to me. I think this design is okay, so I think I'm gonna give this one a C tier. There are things I like about it, but there's also things I feel like look a little derpy, which should work for a smaller alien, but I don't think it necessarily works for Echo Echo in some ways. At least this type. Next we have Humongousaur, designed by Kuro the artist, and I like how this one, similar to stuff like the reboot, actually gives extra details to Humongousaur, unlike the UAF version, which is just a little bland. I like the scales on him that are kind of like rock looking, that's pretty neat, and I like how his full grown form looks a lot especially. The extra scales and the spike details, it all looks great, like the full grown Humongousaur looks fantastic. If I'm going off of base form, I'd give it a B, but since I'm also going off of the scaled form, I might give this one an A. Honestly, it looks so good. I know Humongousaur gets a lot of flack, and don't worry, I'm right up there with you guys, but I always forget that Humongousaur, at least in early Alien Force, or maybe even all of Alien Force specifically, used to be cool. I was gonna give this one a B tier, but honestly seeing the full-grown version makes me really want to give it an A tier, so kudos for the amazing design. Now we have Jet Ray, designed by Insane Main, and honestly I didn't expect this, but this one's going into S. This is my favorite Jet Ray design I've ever seen. I like how the suit's incorporated much better here than the hypothetical Omniverse design where he has like that BDSM shit going on. And Jet Ray's one of those aliens that I feel like takes more elements from the animal or whatever it is they're inspired by and goes full force with it, and I think in this case it looks really good. I like his face details, I like his teeth, I like how his eyes look, the markings on his arms and his back look really nice, I love how the wings are shaped, the tail, everything about his design is just perfect. This is one of the best that 5YL has to offer in my opinion. Big Chill, designed by Kuro the artist, is another one I'm really shocked at how much I like. Like the Omniverse version, this one tries to give more of a moth element to him, which is nice because that is what he's inspired by. However, in this case, I think it works so much better. I've always been a fan of the more slim Big Chill as opposed to the husky one in Omniverse, even though I do have elements of that design I would defend. And I like how the 5YL version gives him like the moth fur, and like his wings and his antennas look ghostly given that he is a ghost alien. I actually think this one's really good, and I kind of want to give it S tier. I even like how his like fingers have like the glowing details of ice. Same with his antennas on his like head, not the back ones. That looks really nice. I like how his face looks. Like this one's great. Next is Chromastone, designed by Insane Main, and holy shit, this design rocks. Pardon the pun. I love the multicolored crystals, and I love how it's not only on top of his like purple stone, but also his pink crystal limbs. That's really great. I love the lines in between. I love how the suit doesn't look completely ass like the Omniverse version. I'm not sure if I like the face being blacked out, but it's not too big of a deal. Like, this is an S tier. Chromastone looks fucking awesome. As for Brainstorm, designed by Kuro the artist, I'm gonna be honest, I don't like this design that much. Something about the intellectual aliens just don't suit well with me, I guess. The only details I kinda like is how his suit is incorporated. I do like it, but other than that, I don't got much to say. I mean, I guess the details on his claws are really nice, like the little bumps, the extra ones, that's pretty cool. And I can respect the attempt to make him look like a realistic crab, but I don't know, man. I don't like how the eyes look. I think the legs being segmented is neat, but eh. And I'm not a fan of the 3 flaps or the badge being on top of his like shell. That doesn't sit right with me, to be honest. Honestly, this one's gonna get a C tier. I like it a little more than the Grey Matter one, but I still think this one's kind of a downgrade from the UAF or Omniverse version. Spider Monkey, designed by Kuro the artist, is so close to being, like, perfect. I love this design. There's only one thing that really knocks it for me, and it's those fucking ears. Yes, I know he's based off a monkey, duh. And yes, I know Simeon in Omniverse actually shows off the ears. The point is that this design, it's just ruined by those fucking ears. I love the suit. I love the coloration of his limbs being more of like almost a teal this time around. I love the extra tail to make him look more alien. Like, this is such a good design. It's just, again, the ears really throw it off for me. So this one gets an A tier instead of an S. Goop, designed by Kuro the artist, his only real difference is the fact that he just has the badge placement on the UFO like the Omniverse version, but his design is based off the UAF version. So there's not much to really say. I think his coloring looks great. Again, the art in all of these are fantastic regardless of my opinion on the design. But again, not really changing much, so I feel like a B is fair for this one. Capping off the original 10 for Alien Force, we have Alien X, designed by Kuro the artist. The one thing I really like about this design that stands out is the more cosmic coloration. Like on his lower half you see like shades of purple and blue and stuff. That's really neat, and his outlining is also really cool. The headpiece is unique looking, and it's a pretty solid design overall. I also like that you can see shooting stars in his design. That's pretty cool too. It's not too different from the show versions, especially the UAF version, but this one gets a B tier. I like it a lot. Starting off the additional aliens in UAF, we have Lodestar. This one is designed by Insane Main and just might be my favorite design in all of 5YL. Lodestar, as I mentioned previously, is one of my favorite aliens of all time, and this design does him so much justice. I love how he has inspirations from Lodestone, something that he's based off of, which is a magnetic rock, and I think his suit actually looks pretty okay. I like the little ball above his head, and I think this head mouthpiece thing looks pretty neat, and the like details of lining on his body and the spikes and shit, all fantastic. Next up, we have Wrapped, designed by Kuro the artist. Now, this is how you do clothes on Wrath without looking ridiculous. I fucking do not like Luchador Wrath in Omniverse. As far as the design goes, it has a lot of inspirations from what I could tell being the Generator Rex Wrath, which looks really nice. I love how there's stripes on his pants. I love the coloration and separation of black, white, and green. His facial expression's great. His fur details are great. This is great. Overall, I give this design an S tier. Like, this Wrath is like perfect. Next, we have Nanomech, designed by Kuro the artist and OR Ash. I, at first, didn't really like this design that much because I wasn't a fan of how his legs looked. I actually preferred a more humanoid look for him, given that he's half human, half nanochip. But now that I look at the design more, it's actually one that's grown on me a bit. Some things I like about the design includes the wiring and the circuit patterns on his limbs. I like the, shoulder collar thing he has, and I do like the separations with his, arms and legs and his bottom half and everything. I also think the head shape is pretty neat as well. I was originally going to be kinda harsh on this design, but again, it grew on me a lot, so I'm going to give this one a C tier. I like it, but I don't really love it. As for Water Hazard, designed by Insane Mane, I love this design a lot. He's a little bit more huskier than his usual design, kinda like going from UAF Big Chill to Omniverse Big Chill, but I still think that it actually works a lot for Water Hazard. I like how the barnacles on his body look, as well as the different sizes of them. Like, the giant ones really work for the design. I like the sharp points on his arms and legs, and I also like the little pattern he has on the red parts of his body. I could do without the whiskers, but besides that, this design is really great. Honestly, I kinda want to give this one an A tier. It's actually a lot better than I thought it would be. As for Amphibian, designed by Kuro the artist and OR Ash, I could definitely see where the OR Ash inspiration comes from, with the lack of legs, which honestly for Amphibian specifically is a little bit of a downgrade to me. I do like how some elements from the Omniverse design carries over, however, I just don't really like this Amphibian as much as the canon show versions. As a design on its own, it's okay. I give it a C rank, honestly. Next is Armadillo, my personal favorite of the Andromeda 5, designed by Insane Mane. Similar to Jet Ray or Brainstorm, Armadillo is another alien that has more organic features based off of whatever he's inspired by, in this case an armadillo, and I think it works for him. I honestly don't mind mechanical aliens, and Armadillo is my favorite of those mechanical aliens, but for an organic Armadillo design, this one looks pretty good. I like how his face looks, I like the extra details like the scales on his skin, I like the fact that his elbows and arms and everything has the extra lines and bolts, that's pretty neat. And I do like how his tail actually looks like that of an armadillo tail. The black and green complement the yellow armor and the palish skin very well, and I think his facial expression, along with how his ears and teeth look, are pretty good. This one gets an A tier. Next up is Terraspin, designed by Kuro the artist and OR Ash. This design isn't too different from the show version, though I do like the addition of the little helmet he has, that's pretty cute. I think the green that he has in the show works better for his skin than the paler one they have here, but it's not too bad. There's only one thing about this design I do not like, and it's... yeah, that just looks wrong, but that's just a nitpick. I think this one gets a B tier, I like it. As for Energy, we have two designers by Technicality, as there's two forms. We have Insane Mane for the suit version, and then the true form by Kuro the artist. Let's talk about the suit version first. I like the suit version, it looks more like a nuclear reactor than a walking oven than he does in the show. I like the extra details like the bolts with the little radiator patterns on his shoulder, I like how his feet are glowing, I like the green and white complementing his silver suit very well. And I also like how the core actually has a bit of a, reactor pattern as well. I think the suit version is going to get an A tier. As for the true form version designed by Kuro the artist, I like it a lot, it's actually pretty cool looking. I was never really too big on the out-of-suit energy we get in Omniverse, not enough to hate it, but more so that I just don't care for it. But the one here designed by Kuro looks really good, it's almost like a demon, which makes sense given that, he could just be near you and you just die. I think the out-of-suit version gets a B. Honestly, the only reason I'm not putting it A and higher is maybe a stupid reason I don't care for out-of-suit energy, but as far as the design goes, this one is pretty damn good. Next we have Fast Track, designed by Kuro the artist. One thing I absolutely love is the cat-like details that he has, because UAF Fast Track, despite being a feline-like alien, doesn't really seem like a cat. I didn't even know he was a cat until a decade later. I like the claws, I like the extra fur, I like how his color's a little darker compared to Accelerate, I like the head shape, the ears, that all looks really nice. I also like the suit and the details of the zigzag pattern, that's a really nice touch. Honestly, this design is just fantastic, so Fast Track gets an S rank. Next is Chameleon, designed by OR Ash, who ironically adds legs instead of takes away, and I think this design is okay. I prefer his purple coloration from his canon design, but the paler purple and the black isn't too bad of a look either. On one hand, I like that his pupils make him look more lizard-like, but on the other, I kinda prefer him without pupils. The suit details, particularly on the bottom half, look pretty neat, and the purple stinger is really nice as well. This design kinda reminds me of a reptilian centaur, and it's okay, but not too amazing. I don't know, I kind of wish he had a bit more of a lizard look than this weird, like, serpent look. But it's still pretty neat, so I give it a C rank. As for Shock Squatch, designed by Kuro the artist, I like how this design has elements of both the Heroes United and Omniverse designs. I like the mixtures of yellow and, like, darker blues and grays. That looks really nice. I like the orange hands and feet. I like the bolt placements. I think this one's pretty good. Honestly, an A rank. Next is Edel, designed by O.R. Ashe. This design reminds me a lot of Hercules Kabuterimon, which is honestly a plus because I do like Digimon somewhat. At first I was a little off-put by the design, but now that I'm looking at it, I actually like it a lot more given the more Beetle-esque elements that Edel has in this design, like the giant wings. Having him fly is pretty cool. I actually really like the idea of Edel being a lot bigger, being 14 feet to be exact, and the extra limbs is actually really cool. I also like the sharp edges for his fingers. Honestly, I didn't expect to like Edel's design as much as I do, so I'm gonna give this one an A tier. This one's really good. Next we have Clockwork, who is designed by all 3 designers, Kuro the artist, O.R. Ashe, and Insane Mane, and it shows because this design is one of my favorites that we have in 5YL. I love how his shoulders have like alarm clock motifs, and I love the underarms, that looks really cool. I love the line patterns, I love everything about this design. This is like perfect. Capping off the UAF aliens, we have Jury Rig, designed by O.R. Ashe. I'm not really a big fan of this design. I kind of really like the Daredevil aviator outfit he has in Omniverse, and getting rid of that for this one isn't really my cup of tea. I do like how his outfit has more, you know, tech inspirations given his powers, but again, just not too big on this one. I don't outright dislike this design, but I'm gonna give this one a D rank because I definitely think this Jury Rig design is inferior to all my C ranks so far. Starting with our Omniverse aliens, we have Feedback, designed by Kuro the artist. I like the design for his green patterns, and I also like his pupil. That's a pretty nice touch. The extra bolts are pretty cool. I like how his tail looks. My only downside, honestly, is his tendrils. I'm much more of a fan of it being connected to his head rather than his collarbone, but it's not that big of a deal. I think Feedback looks pretty good, so I'm gonna give this one an A tier. Next is Blocks, designed by Kuro the artist and O.R. Ashe. I appreciate that they tried to make this design a little more unique, but I know I'm going to be in the minority probably, but I actually prefer the show's version of Blocks than this design. I do like how there's some incorporations of green and white in there to make him not feel as selling toysy as he is. I don't know if that's really the right way to phrase it. I like the white hexagons, I like the face shape, I like the little horn he has, that's pretty cool. Not too big on his badge placement, but it's not a big deal. Overall, I think Blocks looks pretty good, so I'm gonna give him a B tier. As for Gravitack, designed by Kuro the artist, there's not much to really discuss, as like Blitzwolfer and Goop, there's nothing really too different about this design compared to the canon show. I like the little lightning bolt pattern under his badge, and the short designs looks pretty good too. But like I said, nothing too different, so this one gets a B tier. Next is Crash Hopper, designed by Kuro the artist, who I think looks pretty good. He also doesn't really look too different from the show's version, but I do like the suit more in this one. This one also gets a B tier. Next up is Ball Weevil, designed by Kuro the artist and O.R. Ashe, and I actually do like this design, though I do prefer the cutesy version from the show. I like the sharp edges for his legs, I like how his eyes look, and I do like the larger horn. This one gets a B tier as well. Next we have Walkatrout, designed by Kuro the artist. This one is pretty good. I do like the pants more than the like sash he has, but I don't know how I feel about the face. Something about it just feels off for me. I like the bigger fin, I like the shoes and the little like fins on the back of his legs, as well as the badge placement on his back fin. It's actually pretty creative, and I also like the little pattern he has on his body too, although it's a little hard to see. I think Walkatrout deserves an A tier. It's actually a pretty good design. Next up is Pesky Dust, designed by Kuro the artist, and this might be a hot take, but I actually really like this design. I like how he looks more mythical looking than the show's version, and I do like the patterns on his body. The little like magenta stripes are pretty cool, and I think that the white and green top with the black and green bottom complements him pretty well. I like the little green streak in his hair, and I also like how his face looks and his big buggy eyes. That's pretty nice too. Of course, I also like the little like, not scars, but like stripes, the markings under his eyes and his chin. That's pretty good, and the extra hair is pretty cool too. Again, this might be a hot take, but Pesky Dusk, I think, deserves an S tier. And then we go from one of my favorites to one of my least favorites with Mustache, designed by O.R. Ashe. I'm not a fan of the like old man wrestler look for him. I don't really like the little like liver spots on his body. I don't like his face. I don't know. I don't like 5YL Mustache. I do like how his nose is shaped kind of like that the Portal alien from that web game, Poor Taylor. I always forget his name. I don't give a shit about him. I like his claws. That's pretty nice, and the badge placement's okay. Honestly, this one gets an F tier. This might be my least favorite design so far. As for the worst, designed by Kuro the artist, this one is better than the show version for one reason. No underwear. I was never a fan of the underwear, and I was never a fan of his badge placement either, but at least in this case there's an actual suit under it, so it doesn't look as stupid. This one kind of makes him look like, kind of reminds me of like those mucus commercials with like the fucking mucus family. I'll show like a picture or like a video of it in the video. Like I don't remember what they're called at the moment. It's like Milax or some shit. But yeah, this design's pretty okay, C tier. Next is Kick and Hawk, designed by Kuro the artist. This one's pretty good. I prefer the harness, but this suit's pretty decent, and I do like how he kind of reminds me of like the Roadrunner. The badge placement on like the arm strap is pretty cool, kind of reminds me of like some like pseudo version of like the Omnitrix gauntlet for Ben 10,000. I'm also a fan of the little like arrow pattern on the side of his body. That's pretty cool, although it kind of looks like he's wearing suspenders. Not too big on that. This one's still pretty decent though, so I'm gonna give this one a B tier. Now we have Toe Pick, designed by Kuro the artist. I'll start with my dislike because there's only one and it's a minor nitpick, and that is I don't like his shade of color more than the show, which is like more of an olive green. This is more of like a orange, which I'm not too big on, but everything else I love. I love the spikes on his shoulder, I love the suit, I love how his face looks when he takes off the cage. I'm not a big fan of when they show like concept art of what it would look like in the show, since the mystery was part of the fun with Toe Pick, but this version, if they have to show a version, looks really cool and creative. Honestly, I didn't expect it, but Toe Pick is getting an S tier. He looks really great. Next up is Astrodactyl, designed by Kuro the artist and OR Ash. This one I like a lot, but I kind of like a little less now that I'm looking at the suit a little more. Something about like the almost full suit he has doesn't look right to me, but I do like how his like the suit design on his arms look. That's pretty cool, and I do like the like rock chin he has. It kind of reminds me of Mega Astrodactyl, one of my favorite megas of all time, even though he looks absolutely ridiculous. Like Megaman 4 has less spikes than this. But as far as Astrodactyl goes, I think this design is actually pretty good. I think this one gets an A tier. He's close to being perfect, but not absolutely perfect. Next is Bullfrag, designed by OR Ash. I'm honestly not that big on this design. He kind of looks like a Battletoad, which is neat and all, but I don't know. Something about this design I just don't like. Maybe it's because he looks like a giant pickle with limbs. I don't outright hate this look for him, but I don't know. Again, something about it just feels off for me, so I'm gonna give this one a C tier. I think it's okay, but I think it's mostly the exposed arms and legs that kinda mess with me. Now we have Atomics, designed by Kuro the artist and OR Ash. This one, similar to Way Big, is a bit of a controversial design, as you either really love it or really hate it. Personally for me, I really like it. I love the electrical like parts under like his arms that separate his body. I love how his energy looks and the colors of it. As I said before, I don't mind mechanical aliens, and Atomics is honestly one I wish got more appreciation in the show. I think if they actually decided to do more with him in Omniverse, he would have been more of a fan favorite, but that's just me, and that's maybe a discussion for a separate video if I ever want to make a video about Atomics. Overall, I think this design gets an A tier. It's really good. As for Gutrot, designed by Kuro the artist and OR Ash, as soon as I saw this design, I just said to myself, S tier, like instantly. This is like a walking toxic planet as an alien. I love the craters, I love the suit, I love how he has like a helmet for him, I love how the core looks, like, the hands look great, the feet even, like, I love like the little like inner parts of like what looks like, I don't know, is that like organic shit? I don't know what you would call it, I'm sorry, I'm stupid. Point is, this design is probably one of the best in 5YL. He looks phenomenal, easy S tier, like I didn't even have to think about it when I saw this design for the first time. And finally, to cap off Ben Prime's aliens, lastly we have Vampire, designed by Kuro the artist. So Vampire's design is one I see get flack at times due to how much green is in the design, which I could kinda see. I don't necessarily mind it, and Vampire is one of my favorite aliens introduced in Omniverse, in fact, one of my top 10 aliens of all time actually. But as far as how I feel about the 5YL design, I actually really like it. It kind of reminds me of like Man-Bat from DC Comics in a way, because he looks more like an organic mutant bat, rather than just a person with bat elements. I like the fur around his neck, I like how his head is shaped. He kind of looks like a Pokemon, honestly. I like the suit design, I like his like rib cage being emphasized, I like how his feet are elongated, if that makes any sense to phrase it like that. I like how his hands and arms and his like hunch, he has like a slight hunch, that looks really good. I like how the wings look. I kind of would have liked if the wings had a bit more green, but this is still really good. I won't lie, Vampire took a little bit of growing for me because I wasn't sure how I felt about the design at first. Honestly, at first glance, I probably would have given this a C tier, but after looking at it and analyzing it a bit more, I honestly think this one deserves an A tier. This is like very close to S tier material. And that about does it for all of Ben Prime's aliens in the 5YL design. Did you agree with my rankings? Did you disagree? Is there something about the design that you ended up liking more because of what I thought, or disliking more? Let me know what you think down below, and I appreciate you guys for stopping by and watching. If you haven't already, make sure to check out that motion comic on Inktank's channel if you haven't already, but again, if you're a Ben 10 fan, you probably are already aware of it. Thanks again for watching, and as always, happy night hunting.